Good morning, Rechavia and Nachlaot in Yerushalayim. Thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday morning, 9:30 to 10 o'clock Jerusalem time, for us to learn Tanya together. And now we're in the middle of Perek Bet, chapter 2. And I just want to mention about yesterday that I'm sorry that we got cut short a few minutes into the class, just because, as I mentioned in the beginning of the class, that we were about to go into conversion of a real Ger Tzedek, a super tzaddik, and the only time he was able the only time that the rabbis were able to do it was at 9:30, and so otherwise we're here every day, Bezrat Hashem, and I try to make my meetings around this special class. So we're on page 12 in the regular text of the Tanya, and welcome back everyone to our Tanya class. And we are right now, we'll start once again where we started yesterday, Mikol Makom. Mikol is the last word of the sixth line from the top of page 12. So the question the Alter Rebbe asked was that seemingly if all of our neshamot, all of our souls come from the same source, which is the essence of Hashem, so then how is it that some of us are on a level of a more obviously holy, and some of us are on a less obvious level of spirituality? So the Alter Rebbe explains inside, Mikol Makom, page 12, Mikol, the end of the sixth line. Mikol Makom, nevertheless, Shoresh Kol HaNefesh Ruach u'Neshama Kulam. The root, the source of all souls, which includes Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. Kulam, all of them. Meirosh Kol HaMadregot, from the highest level, Ad Sof Kol Dargin, to the lowest level. HaMelubash Beguf HaMei Haaretz, which is enclosed in the bodies of the simple people. V'Kal Shebekalim, and the lightest of the light-headed people. All the neshamot, all of the above. Nimshach is drawn down, mimoach ha'elyon, from the higher level of intellect of Hashem, shehi chochma ila'ah, which is the higher level chochma, the elevated level of chochma, which refers to the chochma of Atzilut. As we explained a few days ago, that we have the concept of the 10 sfirot, the 10 luminaries, both in every world. In Atzilut, in Bria, in Yetzira, and in Asiya. Every world has these 10 levels. And there are many, many worlds, so there are many groups of 10 levels. But the highest world is the world of Atzilut. And in Atzilut, the highest level is Chachma. So all of our neshamas come from, so to speak, Kaviyachol, so to speak, from this high level. Now we're going to have an example. Kamashal Ben. For an example, a son, a child, a nimshach mimoach ha'av, which is drawn down literally, physically, from the mind of the father. Shafilu tziparnei raglav, that even his toenails, nithavu mitipazu mamish, were created literally from this drop, from this semen, literally. Al yidei shehiyata tish'a chadashim bevet ha'em, through the fact that it stays. It becomes developed for 9 months in the womb of the mother. V'yarda mimadrega lemadrega, and it's come down from level to level. Lehishtanot, to be changed. Ulehithavot, and to be created mimena, from it. Tziparnaim, nails. How much more so toenails? So think about how refined and how delicate this drop is when it enters into the womb of the mother. It's impossible to differentiate between the nose, which is going to be developed, and the stomach, and the legs, and so on and so forth, because it's just pure. You cannot, at least us, for the naked eye, we cannot recognize inside this drop what's going to be developed later into the detailed individual limbs of the child. But if someone has a laser beam, or someone is a very big doctor, a surgeon, a professor, and has done all kinds of experiments, then perhaps a person knows, at least a little bit, or maybe not, I don't know. But there's no question that a regular person cannot dissect and to find the difference of the different limbs of the body within the drop before the child is developed. So think about the gap, the huge gap between the child the way it is in the drop, and the child the way it is after he's developed. It's almost like two total extremes. In Hebrew, there's a saying. It's based on a verse. Kirchok mizrach mima'arav, as east is far from west. Just like east and west are totally removed, are so far, and are total opposites, total different directions. So too, the semen versus the way the child has been developed is totally different. One is totally refined, so delicate, and the other one is very coarse and very tangible and very detailed. Now let's continue. V'im kol zeh, and nevertheless, even after the child has been developed in the womb of the mother, odena kshura umyuchedet, it is still connected and bonded, biyichud nifla ve'atzum, with a wondrous and strong, determined bond, bimehuta ve'atzmuta harishon, with its first essence, with its first being. What was that? What was the first being? What was the first expression, the first being of the child? When the child was in this semen, this drop. Shahaita tipat moach ha'av, when it was still inside the mind of the father. So from there, when it was in the source, it had to come to the womb of the mother, and then it's developed through 9 months, and then it's born Bezrat Hashem, and then it develops many, many years, many happy and healthy years. All of that, all of the above, is really attributed to the first moment when the child was sort of identified, at least in some kind of substance, which was that drop. V'gam achshav beven, and also now in the child, it's not just as if, okay, now that the child was born, so you might be able to look back, but right now, bottom line, it doesn't really have any connection to the original source of the child. No. Even now, even after the child is born, and you see all of the limbs, all of you can identify all the different limbs. Yinikata tzipornayim, the nursing, the receiving, the nails receiving their life, the chayutam, and their life force, nimshechet me'amoach shebarosh, is drawn down from the moach of the head. So as we said in one of the earlier classes, that this original being of the child, which is a semen, becomes the mind of the child. So you might say, you know what? Maybe the mind is still connected to that original, the original source of the child. Maybe the heart, maybe other prime parts of the person's body, which are connected to the life of the child. Maybe those are still connected to the original source. But the nails, especially the toenails, those are totally removed. No. The Alter Rebbe says no. Even now, even after the child is born, the yanikah, the receiving of the life force of the child, is constantly from this original source, which is the mind, which is in his head, which was developed first from the original source. Kedeita beGemara Nida Sham, as it says clearly in the Talmud, in the tractate of Nida, Loven, which is, I believe, the white cells, Shemimenu Gidim va'atzamot v'tziparnaim. There are different parts of the cells, which from that is created. From each part, different limbs of the child are created. So the Loven, the white cells, you have the Gidim, the veins, the atzamot, and the bones, the tziparnaim, and the nails. U'kamosh katuv be'etz chaim shara chashmal, as it says in Eitz Chaim, which is from the Arizal, based on the Kabbalah of the Zohar, in the gate called Chashmal, besod levushim, in the secret, in the subject of which discusses the levushim shel Adam Arishon beGan Eden, that Adam Arishon had special clothes in Gan Eden. Obviously, they were not. It was only afterwards when he was thrown out and he realized that he was naked. But he had a special spiritual levush, which was similar, I guess, to the body. Which this was the levushim of Adam Arishon when he was in the Garden of Eden before he was thrown out by Hashem. Shehayut tziparnayim, that his nails were mebchinat moach tevuna, which is a very high intellectual level, which indicates that even nails can have a high source within the mochin, within the moach. By the way, until Noach came along, the way the bodies were, the body was totally covered by nail. After, I believe Noach was the first one, that he was born that only the nails were at the tip of the fingers and the tip of the toes. In any case, the Alter Rebbe is explaining quite clearly that when we say Banim Atem L'Hashem Elokechem, that you are children of Hashem your God, as much as possible, it is literal. Not literal in the physical sense. Hashem does not have a physical being, God forbid, but literally, the neshama of every single Jew comes from the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from the mochin, like we said in the beginning. Just like a child, which is born from parents, the child comes from the mind, and the source of the child becomes his mind, and when the child has a child, that becomes the mind of the grandchild, so to speak. So too, we realize that when it comes to Banim Atem L'Hashem Elokechem, to understanding that we are children of Hashem your God, we are also, the source of our neshama is pure. It's literally from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, the question was as follows. If we say that all of the neshamot come from the essence of Hashem, so how come some of us are obviously more connected to Hashem, like Moshe Rabbeinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the great tzaddikim and prophets from all along the generations? So the first Alter Rebbe has to establish that this is 100% true. Even the toenails, even someone that might consider themselves so low, on such a low spiritual level, that they're like a toenail on the lowest part of the body, and they're so disconnected, so to speak, they see themselves as being disconnected from their source, that when you cut your nails once every couple of weeks, it doesn't even hurt. So that shows that it's detached. God forbid if someone were to cut their toes, that would obviously hurt. But to cut the toenail doesn't hurt. So one can even convince themselves that really the toenail is not even part of the body. What is not even part of the essence. Because it becomes something which is easily detached. Even someone that on a spiritual level sees themselves to be like a toenail, they should know that even when the toenail becomes a toenail, it still receives its life force, the chayutah, its life force from the original source, which is right up there in the mochin shebarosh, in the mind of the head. So once we've established that, now that becomes a given, so to speak, and that becomes a very fundamental concept. Now we're going to continue and to explain what's the difference between the tzaddikim, which are compared to the head, or the eyes, or the more supreme levels of the person's body, and the lower parts of the person's of a body, which can be compared to a person who sees themselves to be on a very low spiritual level. Why is there a difference? Seemingly, we should all be tzaddikim. We should all be in the level of the eyes. We see in the Torah that the Sanhedrin, the great rabbis, were called Einei Ha'ida, the eyes of the community. That's a very, very high level. The eye is one of the most fragile, delicate parts of the person's body. It's connected to light. One of the most amazing miracles of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so why is it that only some of the people are considered Einei Ha'ida, leaders of Am Yisrael, and the other people? Everyone should be called Rashi Ha'ida, or Rosh B'nai Yisrael. By the way, Rebbe is 3 Hebrew letters, Resh Bet Yud. And this is an abbreviation for Rosh B'nai Yisrael, a head and the leader of Am Yisrael. We don't say Manhig, a leader of Am Yisrael. It's true, he is a Manhig, but Rosh, we say it Rosh. We call a leader a Rosh. Just like the head includes within itself the organism of the entire body, so too, a leader of Am Yisrael is not just technical, he happens to have leadership qualities, and therefore we appoint him as being our leader. Rather, it's much deeper than that. His neshama is a neshama klalit, a general neshama. And the neshama, and this neshama includes within himself all the neshamot of his community, or of his city, or of his following. So this is a general neshama. It's a very spiritual concept. And so when we say Rosh B'nai Yisrael, that's why it's called Rosh. It's almost like Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. The famous question is, it should be called Tchilat Hashanah, the beginning of the year. Why do we call Rosh Hashanah the head of the year? And the answer is because it's not just technically the first day of the Jewish calendar. Rather, it's the head of the year. It's a day which has so much quality, so much meaning. Every moment is precious of that day, and that's why there are some people that every spare moment, besides for davening in shul on Rosh Hashanah and eating their meal, they don't even talk. Some people, they just say Tehillim the entire day. Tehillim, 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 because every moment is precious. In general, Tehillim is a great thing to say. How much more so when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year. The head of the year includes within itself all of the days and all of the moments of the entire year. And if we act properly on Rosh Hashanah, then Bezrat Hashem, the entire year, Hashem will give us a great year. So we need to make sure that Rosh Hashanah is dealt properly, whether it's saying Tehillim all day. Some people even say Tehillim all night in shul. Some people will go blow shofar. For a lot of people who did not hear shofar, that's an amazing way to spend your Rosh Hashanah. I remember I was once going with a bacher, 3 or 4 years ago. Excuse me. And he came to help us out in at Chabad of Rechavia. He was like 24, 25. And he was great. He was saying Tehillim almost the entire day. And then we went on Mivtzoim, we went to blow shofar for people. He said to me, I just realized that a shliach doesn't really have time to say Tehillim all day. You try to say Tehillim as much as you can, but you're busy the entire time, every spare moment, lezakot yudim achirim, to give the zechut to other Jews to be able to hear the shofar. I remember that one time we were saying Tashlich outside Chabad of Rechavia on King George, and there weren't many cars, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem, a lot of people were keeping Rosh Hashanah. And then there were a couple people that were running, that were jogging. And they ran back, and I asked them if they wanted to hear, and they kept on jogging. So I ran after them, and I blew shofar for at least the first 10 tkiyot. Someone told me that was a photo moment. Obviously, we couldn't take a picture on Rosh Hashanah or a video, but whoever saw it, that was like a Kodak moment. Today, no one knows what Kodak is anymore. But that's another story. And so it's a great zechut that every moment we should be able to blow shofar. By the way, it's much easier to help people fulfill the mitzvah of shofar than any other mitzvah. Tefillin, Shabbos candles, reading the Megillah. Reading the Megillah is long, but even shaking lulav and etrog, because by the shofar he doesn't have to do anything. He just has to listen. And even if he thinks he's not listening, his neshama is listening, and even if it's a great zechut. Let's get back to our let's get back to our subject. So we're talking about Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year, and it's very important for us to cherish every single moment of Rosh Hashanah, that it should be dealt properly. The same thing is regards to the Rosh B'nai Yisrael. We're going to learn in the next couple of classes in much greater detail about what it means to be a Jewish leader. And then we'll realize what's the difference between someone who is obviously a tzaddik and someone who seems to be on a very low spiritual level. But then we're going to see that even someone who seems to be, at least on an obvious level, to be on a low spiritual level, even that person is so special, and therefore we should never underestimate anyone. We should always cherish every single yid, because we have to realize, especially learning this amazing chapter of Tanya, how even if a person could be in the level of a toenail, spiritually, you still connected 100% with the original source of the mochin, of the intellect of Hashem. And just to finish off with one anecdote, which can hopefully clarify this concept. We all know the example of, the analogy of a train. You can have a train which is a local train, and you can have a train which is an express train, or you can have a regular airplane, or you can have a Concorde which cuts the time by which cuts the time by a percentage, maybe even by 50%. What's the difference? Both planes are flying in the sky. By the plane, it's the same analogy, but it's more difficult to explain. So we'll take the example of the train. It's easier to understand. It's not just the time, but it's also the locations. By a plane, it's usually going from point A to point Z. They're going to the same points, just quicker. So I'd rather stick to the example of the analogy of the train. So you have a train, they're both going from A to Z. But the difference is that the local train is going to make a number of stops on the way. And someone that goes from beginning to end, both started from the beginning and both ended at the end. Some people are going to get off in the middle to buy something to eat, or to do whatever they need to do and come back on the train. Some people are just going to stay on the train. Some people are going to go from point A to point Z in one shot. There are many, many different types of people. Some people are going to sleep the whole way through, and some people are going to schmooze, and some people are going to learn their Torah, the Rambam, the daily Rambam, 3 chapters a day, and some people are going to learn the Chitat and the Daf Yomi. Everyone's going to do something else. But it's going to make a difference. The way you spend your time, it's going to make a difference on this journey from point A to point Z. So a tzaddik, his neshama comes from the essence of Hashem, from the level of Chachma, directly down to this world, and remains with its beautiful quality the way it was up there. And that's why a tzaddik, the way the tzaddik comes down over here, you can tell on their face that there is a special shine, a special spiritual light, a special ray. It's not just something which you can earn. Either you got it or you don't got it. That's just the way it is. It's not an offensive thing if you don't have it. It's just a fact. And the tzaddik, a real tzaddik, a real tzaddik which is all spiritual, even down here. A real tzaddik didn't make any stop-offs, any stopovers. He didn't get out of the train. He didn't stop. He went directly. Hashem brought his neshama directly down from the highest level down to this physical, materialistic, mundane world. a gift it is that we have when we have such tzaddikim amongst us. It gives us a level of spirituality. You just have to look at the tzaddik, you look at the Rebbe, and you see elokut, you see godliness radiating from the tzaddik's face. Wow, it's such a great tzaddik. Anybody who saw the Rebbe was able to realize this, was able to see this clearly. Didn't have to be a Chabadnik in order to see it. Like one Hasid Gur told me a couple of years ago, he told me, if you didn't have videos of the Rebbe, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe the great Kedusha. He said, I sit in hours, tens of hours, just watching the Rebbe's videos of the Farbrengens and the davening and the dollars that the Rebbe would give out. Because that's the best example of a true tzaddik who is radiant, and even the way down he is in this world, he's able to project true elokut, true godliness. How fortunate we are that we have the Rebbe, that we're able to even now after Gimel Tammuz, we're able to watch the Rebbe's videos and to become inspired and to see true elokus. And there are very few people in our generation that we can truly turn to as being real tzaddikim, and there are many good people, don't get me wrong. There are many different levels in the middle of the way, like I told you earlier, that maybe one stopover or a few stopovers, or maybe they came straight down but they had a little nap on the way, which is fine. I'm just trying to emphasize the importance and the greatness of a true tzaddik that is able to even the ways down here, to be exactly 100% authentic, and to be able to project Hashem's Kedusha in this world. And therefore, we wish everyone that, in summary, that we should all connect to the tzaddikim, because we're going to see soon how important that is. And to realize even the knowledge itself that we are part of Hashem, we ourselves, and how much more so that we have tzaddikim amongst us, that we are so fortunate, and hopefully that gives us a totally different perspective of ourselves, the tzaddikim, and the world around us. Thank you for joining us.